Test 1, 2. Test, test, test. You hear it? Test, test, test. Okay.
like to invite all legislators into the chambers so that we can start our meeting. All right, welcome to the Nassau County Legislature. I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask Legislator Rose Walker to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Okay, Mike, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Roll call. Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Copel. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Denise Ford.
Here.
Legislator Sela Bino.
Here.
Legislator Carrier Solage.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Deborah Muley. Legislator C. William Gaylor III.
Present.
Thank you. Legislator Ellen Birnbaum is out, sorry. Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Legislator Mazi Phillip.
Here.
Legislator Delia DeRigi Witten. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Thomas McKevitt. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Legislator John Ferretti. Thank you. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rose Marie Walker. Legislator Josh Lafazan. Josh? All right. Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams.
Here.
Thank you. And Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello. Thank you. We have a
Okay.
quorum.
Thank you, Mike. Just a word or two about procedure. Today's a little bit unusual. We are having a meeting of the full legislature to consider one item and then one emergency item, and then we'll be going to the committees. There'll be a public comment period before the full legislature starts. There's also public comment during committees. I know that I have one slip from Attorney Janice Whalen, who wishes to speak on the map of Toretta Estates, which will be going before the Planning Commission committee in a number of minutes after we finish with the full legislature. But if anyone wants to speak on committees, they can do so then, or you can speak now. We just ask that you fill out a slip with the people at the table here. As is our custom, it's our honor to recognize the top cops for the month of February, and I'd like to invite the president of the PBA, Tom Shevlin, to come on up.
Thank you for having us. On August 30th, 2021 at 2:15 p.m., 3rd Precinct police officers Patrick Castell and Michael Chiappone responded to an apartment complex in Floral Park for a juvenile incident. Officer Castell arrived first and observed a 5-year-old hanging from a second-story window approximately 25 feet in the air. She was struggling to hang on with her hands. Officer Castell was attempting to instruct the child to re-enter the window. The child stated, "I want to come to the ground." Officer Castell remained beneath the window, ready to catch the child, should she fall. Officer Chiappone then arrived and quickly ran to the second-floor apartment where the child was located. The door was locked, and there was no response to his banging on the door. Knowing that time was of the essence, he kicked the door to gain access. Officer Chiappone ran over to the window and pulled the child to safety. A search of the apartment revealed that the child was left alone in the apartment. After further investigation, it was determined that the mother had gone to the doctor's appointment and left the 5-year-old child unsupervised for approximately 3 hours. A police medic evaluated the child and was found to be in good health, and Child Protective Services was notified. The child was released to the custody of her uncle at the request of her mother. If not for these officers' quick actions, this story could have had a very different ending. The PBA is proud to name police officers Michael Chiappone and Patrick Castell as a legislative top cops for January 2022.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Again, I just want to say thank you for the support over the weekend. Thank you for your support today. And thank you for the support of our 2 officers here. Without that, they go out there knowing that they're on their own. They know in this county that all of our legislators and our county exec always have their back, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
My partner and I would like to thank the Legislative Board, the PBA President, and the Police Commissioner for having us.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Legislator Giuffre if he would say a couple of words. You could safe from there, yeah.
So, officers, to serve and to protect is a motto that we hear. For you, it is a lifestyle. So we thank you for saving that little girl and for your dedication to serving the people of Nassau County. God bless you both.
Okay, I'd like to invite the officers up, as well as Tom Shevlin and Commissioner Ryder for a presentation. So join us in the dais, please.
Presiding Officer Josh Lafazan has checked in.
That's the business. Well, actually, is there any public comment? So again, full legislature. Do you have something for the full legislature? Something specific to committees? What do you have?
Good afternoon, Meter J. Meriday. With regard to the full ledge and in reference to this being Black History Month, I wanted to make mention and to pray for the families of the campus safety officers in Bridgewater College in Virginia, campus safety officer J.J. Jefferson, and campus safety officer John Painter. As one of the students at HBCU that's being targeted with bomb threats, we have to do something. And if it has to start in Nassau County, then it should start in Nassau County. But we have to do something about all the isms. I recall at the last meeting here, there was a lot of discussion warranted with regard to the rise in anti-Semitism, but we have a lot of anti-isms in a number of areas, and racism is clearly among it. So it is my challenge and my charge to this body that we focus on a broad-based platform that addresses these scenarios. And I'm standing here in February, which has been designated as Black History Month, but Black history, as with Hispanic history, Asian history, Jewish history, Italian history, again, it goes across the board. That is 365. And it should be addressed that way. It should be considered that way. And the issues that impact all ethnicities, racial groups, religious sects, and genders should be addressed. It should be honored, and it should be focused on in more manners than mere slogans and things of that nature. So, on the specific topics, it is my hope, again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, one, I don't know what the other emergency item is, which is, again, a disservice to taxpayers who need to have this information. If it warranted an emergency, then they should be notified as well. So if they did have a chance to comment, they could do so. But it's my hope with this particular item on this agenda that all residents are given the platform and the privilege, as well as the access to address the issues that pertain to what many can construe as their voting rights or their access to voting, period. So again, it's my hope that this is just the starting point, and that what happens after the fact is going to be open, transparent, and inclusive to all parties who are involved, and most importantly, all parties who are impacted and continue to be disenfranchised with the voting process, be it here in Nassau County, in New York State, and across the country. So again, I pay my taxes here. I stand on a foundation that my family helps to build. And I also want to recognize the campus officer, the Capitol Police Officer, Eugene Goodman, who stood in the forefront to protect the U.S. Capitol, again, a structure that was built primarily by his ancestors, because slaves, indentured servants, and some free people built that Capitol in Washington, D.C. that was desecrated on January 6th, 2021. So again, I am standing before you here with the hope that this item will be given the full measure of outreach, support, and inclusion that it deserves at this critical time and critical juncture in this nation's history, as well as the foundation of this county under a new administration that I can only hope is much more inclusive with regard to not just diversity, but also equity, and also transparency and honesty and fiscal management. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mita. Let's go to the first hearing, which is a hearing on a proposed local law. It's a local law relating to the readjustment or alteration of county legislative districts subsequent to the decennial federal census of 2020. Motion to open the hearing by Legislator Ferretti, seconded by Legislator Kennedy. All in favor of opening the hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, hearing is open. This item pertains to the first step in the redistricting process. It's more of a procedural step than anything else. The Nassau County Charter requires that the boundaries of the 19 legislative districts be adjusted every 10 years, and the Charter provides a means for accomplishing this. The redistricting occurs after the census is released every 10 years, and this year the census was delayed because of COVID. It was not released until August 12th, 2021. Section 112 of the County Charter, County Government Law, requires that within 6 months of the census, the legislature must adopt a local law describing the 19 legislative districts. So the deadline is February 12, 2022. The local law that we are adopting today merely restates the the lines that currently exist for the legislative districts. These are the districts that we have been running under for the last 10 years. These district lines will never be used again as a result of the census and constitutional requirements. Regardless of the process in the charter, they must be changed. So we are following precedent in terms of how this was handled 20 years ago by the Democratic majority at the time in terms of this first step to just readopting the existing district lines. Sections 113 and 114 of the county charter govern the substantial process that will be followed in getting new district lines. And the next step after today will be the appointment of the commissioners who will serve on the Temporary District Advisory Committee, which will be charged with developing maps and holding hearings throughout the county and providing all sorts of means for input for our residents. So those procedurals, those substantial steps will follow this. But for today's purposes, we are merely readopting the existing lines. Anyone, Legislator Reggie Wynn?
Not to start out on a bad note, but in light of the new state law, Chapter 156, Law 202, we've basically decided that because that sets out a criteria that the county should follow regarding redistricting, we are concerned that some of the actions that this legislature are taking now are not consistent with the statutory requirements. Without a written opinion from our county attorney, we feel that we are unprepared to support this at this time. So basically what our concerns are is that some of the lines that are in existence today are not in compliance with the new law. So at this point, until we get a written opinion from the county attorney, which we would like to request now, we plan on abstaining.
I would just point out that we, under the existing laws of the county, that we have to adopt a map by February 12th in 5 days. So we have to take this step before February 12th to be in compliance with Section 112. And again, these lines will never be used for any candidate to ever run for legislature again. They simply cannot be used. So it's more of a procedural step to comply with the way the county government law is structured. We hear your request.
I understand it, and again, obviously it'll pass, but we just don't feel comfortable passing it through at this point because we feel that it's not in compliance with the new law that just took place. So we're going to abstain.
Okay. Any other comment or discussion among the legislators? Any public comment? Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Just say, you have to state your name for the...
My name is Barbara Epstein.
Okay.
My question is, when will you be appointing members of the commission?
I believe they have to be appointed by early May, so you're talking within the next few weeks. The appointments will be made by the majority and the minority.
Will they, the names of the members will be posted so the committee and the way the procedure will take place during the commission's hearings?
Yes, the names will be posted, and there's money that's been allocated in our budget for a full process involving hearings, involving public dissemination of information, etc. So that will all be a matter of public information.
Is there a particular way that I might be able to get that information?
Yes, I mean, if you want to just give your contact information to the clerk's office, we will make sure that you get advised.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Sure. Anyone else?
Media Jam Meriday, in light of Legislator Jerigi Witten's statements, I was wondering if there was a way, because it is a new state law, in terms of getting some type of extension period from the state with regard to that February 12th deadline. Secondly, again, you stated that this is just a procedural continuance, so to speak, that there would be no changes. So if that's the fact, I think residents were still probably a little confused or concerned as to the process for this appointment and the procedure and when these new lines would then be put into effect, because they would in fact influence election processes, particularly in this county. So on the one hand, you're saying, we're just saying we're going to keep everything the same and everything should be okay along the same lines. And then you're saying we are setting up committees and we're having meetings and we're having appointments. And once again, there are so many constituencies in this county that have felt long-standing disenfranchisement and being left out of the process and getting lack of information or getting it late. How does the one piece, we're keeping this as it is, impact the other piece that we need to set up committees, we have to have a commission, we have to have a process, and then we have to decide on how we want these districts to look. And thirdly, tying it in from a new state law, which kind of changes the game in many aspects, and you have state courts that are striking down redistricting plans that are coming from other types of municipalities. And how is that going to be handled in this region when you have one party ruling on one side and then you have another party ruling on the other, and the taxpayers are the ones that are being squeezed out in the middle? So if anybody can address that, particularly with regard to getting some type of extension for review and consideration of what the state is putting down as far as guidelines.
The deadline is set by the Nassau County government law. It's set in 5 days. We have to take action, period. The substantive process will unfold after that as per the county charter. And ultimately, whatever results from that process will have to comply with the United States Constitution, one man, one vote, and other principles, the New York State Constitution, and the laws passed recently passed by the state legislature. So the result of the process will be in compliance with every one of those requirements. But the substantive process in terms of defining what the district lines will be determined by by the process that's set forth. But for today's purposes, we're simply complying with the way the charter is written.
But you have the opposing side presenting a strong argument that's based upon state law. So again, my question has to do with, I guess, the chains of command. So once again, are we just circumventing what is actual state law under the guise that we are following constitutional procedure based upon a Nassau County structural dynamic?
You can describe it whatever way you want, but
I'm just asking. I'm asking a question. The other side said they're abstaining, so they have some valid arguments with regard to that.
That's not unusual, but the bottom line here is that these lines will never, ever be used for anyone to run for office. So the more important issue is going to be the lines that are adopted after the process is over.
But these lines are always used for someone running for office, because that's generally how they are gerrymandered in such a way that you have, even if Newsday is saying that certain states are realigning their districts to create certain structures for certain parties to have power. And I'm really focused on making sure that it goes honestly, again, with transparency and involvement from across the board. So if the other side, and this is new news today, if they're abstaining based upon a valid argument, I'm just saying, why can't, there are issues that have been tabled here on even less, on flimsier agendas. So that's why I'm asking. So
well, thank you very much,
if the question is going to be kind of dismissed, then it's kind of business as usual.
We're going around in a circle.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this from the public? If not, Legislator Kennedy, would you want to make a motion to close the hearing? Legislator Ferretti seconds the motion. All in favor of closing the hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the hearing is closed. And now for a vote on the proposed local law. It's a local law relating to the readjustment or alteration of county legislative districts subsequent to the decennial federal census of 2020, moved by Legislator Walker, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. That item is now before the legislature. Any other public comment, other comment or discussion among legislators? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining?
Abstain. Abstain.
All right, so we have it passes by a vote of 12 votes in the affirmative by the majority, with 7 votes
Can you
abstaining.
mark for the record that Legislator Lafazan has joined?
Yes, I'm sorry. He was actually came on a while ago. So Legislator Lafazan is participating and has voted on this item. It's 12 votes in the affirmative, 7 votes abstaining. Item passes. Okay. We are not ready to proceed with the emergency item, and I'll tell you briefly what it is. We are seeking to extend the period that people have to challenge their assessment from the current deadline to a date later in April. So, but that we're not ready to call that just yet. So I will put the legislature in recess, and we'll move to the Rules Committee. All right, Mike, you want to do the honors?
Thank you, sir. Roll call, Rules Committee. Legislator Sheila Bino. Legislator Delia DeRiggi-Whitten. Ranking Member Kavan Abrahams.
Here.
Legislator Laura Schaefer. Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Vice Chairman Howard Coppell. Chairman Richard Nicolello. We have a quorum, sir.
As per usual, we will be considering the contracts portion first. I'm going to call them all together. We'll consider them and then vote on them, either together or separately. A2 of 2022, A4, A5. These are resolutions authorizing the Commissioner of Shared Services to award and execute blanket purchase orders between the county and Federal Sales LLC, High-Tech Air Conditioning Service, and Long Island Locksmith and Alarm. E1, E2, E3, U1 of 2022. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute personal services agreements or amendments to personal services agreements between the county and Top Key Court Reporting, Jacobs Project Management Company, Triad Group, and the Incorporated Village of Lake Success. So we will start with the assessment-related item first, which is A2 of 2022. Well, before we do that, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator DeRiggi-Whitten. So those contracts are before us. And start with the assessment item, which is A2, with the contract with IT Federal Sales.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Jacovina, Deputy Commissioner, Information Technology. A2-2022. The vendor is Federal Sales LLC. The product is called Cyclomedia. This product provides Geocyclorama, a 360-degree panoramic photograph with ultra-high resolution. The request is for a 6-year agreement with data captures every other year for 3 years. The first year is 2022 and is for $897,000. The second data capture is in 2024 for $944,000, and the third data capture is in 2026 for $992,000. We will be encumbering 1 year at a time. The data capture will be used by a variety of agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Assessment, DPW, and Fire Marshal. It is being procured off the GSA state contract. I have representatives from the assessment if you have any specific questions on how this product will be used by their department.
I'm just curious as to how the images will be captured. Is it street level? Is it captured from satellite? I mean, any more details on this?
Picture, sure. Daniel Ross, Department of Assessment. So if you picture how Google creates it. It's going to be a car that's going to be driving out all of our streets and roadways, and they will be capturing the imagery from the street level.
Okay, so then this will enable you, Department of Assessment, other departments in the county to have more information, more detailed information as to the structures that it captures. Is that accurate? Right.
That is correct. All properties will have new imagery collected based on that too.
Go ahead, Deputy Presiding Officer Copel has a question.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that it's kind of similar to the Google Maps kind of thing, where they take all these pictures?
Similar, yes.
Similar. So why do we need a separate one? Why can't the Department of Assessment use some publicly available things like Google or, some other analogous service?
It's similar in the way that it just appears, but there's a lot of other technology that's behind there. It's tied into our GIS systems. So imagery and data points are collected, I believe it's every 15 feet along the ways. You can measure off of it from the streets. You can do a lot more. It's not just an imagery capture that you would find on.
So it's a lot of data that you need that's not available on other publicly available or other systems.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's Reggie Witt.
Hi, I was just wondering, who's going to actually own the data that, the photos that you take, or that they take, this company?
The imagery, from my understanding, is owned by them. However, if we use, I believe it's called an API, and I can get more, it's a third party. If we download the imagery, which I'm under the impression that it is easily able to be done, we can extract that data and own it ourselves, as long as we go about that and download it.
So going forward, we're going to be basically kind of married to this company, or else we would lose all the data. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. The goal, and I could, Eric, if you want to elaborate on that portion.
Eric Batista, IT Specialist, Nessa County IT. So this product is considered software as a service. So it will be hosted on Cyclomedia servers, and the county will be paying a maintenance license to access that content.
So if going forward we didn't want to renew a contract with IT Federal Sales, would we still have access to the information?
The information would be available through the maintenance license that we would be paying for going forward.
Okay, do we have a copy of the maintenance license yet, or no?
Yes, that is all in
It's
the
all part
packet
of
with
this?
the price schedule, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Legislator Schaefer.
Good afternoon. Did you say earlier that it was going to be like a car or vehicle going by taking the photo?
Correct.
Okay, so then how do they get the back? Like, are you getting the above and on the sides and of the properties, or just the front?
It is just straight up from the public right away.
Just to the front, you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, and that provides you with all the information that you need? You're able to get what you need from that?
It will enhance our abilities exponentially. We do have updated aerial imagery. We'll be able to tie that in through mapping software and everything else that this provides, so we would be able to get a complete picture from aerial as well as street imagery, which we don't have currently.
Okay, and where the aerial, is that something the county takes care of as well? We have our own people that go out and take care of that?
We do have a contract, yes.
Okay, so they work together, in other words, the two programs?
They do work well together, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it, thanks.
What functions does this replace that are being performed by assessment?
It doesn't necessarily replace anything. It enhances it, and it gives us the ability to more efficiently collect the data and get a better understanding of what's going on with the property as we speak, as opposed to delayed and outdated imagery and everything else.
Matthew Cronin, Department of Assessment, would also update current photography in the system. It would be able to access as of the point that the car took the photo, as opposed to outdated pictures that we may have. So it would update that expeditiously.
I recall when they did the reassessment 20 years ago, they had people going to every house in the county taking a photograph and using that. As Google does, they update their imagery. Will this be updated? Will this go past the same blocks more than once? Is that something that will happen or not?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Will it be going past the same premises more than once? Does it go down the same block more than once? Or is it just one sweep through the whole county?
It'll be done over a 3-month period, the collection is my understanding, but it's usually, from what I was understanding from the demonstration, that it goes in both directions of the lane, so it'll go up and down the block, but it should be done in one pass.
I was just curious as to whether it gets updated. Google Maps goes out every 2 or 3 years, and the images get updated.
This will be updated every other year.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next contracts are with Public Works, starting with A4, high-tech air conditioning.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Public Works. A4 is a service blanket order for building management systems, maintenance and repair. We had one bidder, and our annual expectation is about $1 million a year for this maintenance activity for buildings with management systems included.
I think the question we had was, why was there only one bidder on a contract of this magnitude? Do you have an idea of the reason?
We have a hard time getting multiple bids on any HVAC work. I don't know what the pool of vendors are on this myself. I'd have to do some research on that.
This is obviously advertised the customary ways, and
all through purchasing, like any purchase rec would go out.
Any HVAC company that's on our list will get
notified. Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Legislator Bino.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Hi, Ken.
Good afternoon.
Just, kind of to piggyback off that question by the presiding officer, can you tell me, I understand there's a requirement when we only get one bid in. However, we had other companies or entities request the package, that we kind of do our due diligence to go back and inquire as to why those entities did not formally submit. Can you tell me how many companies we reached out to and what were their responses?
I'd have to refer that to purchasing. They would do that for this type of contract.
Is purchasing here?
Claudia Colasordo, Office of Purchasing. 19 people looked at this bid. We contacted all 19.
And what was the feedback we received?
Not interested, don't do this type of work, not able to do this type of work, don't do this type of work, not interested. So we received one bid, and they met their specifications, and we made the recommendation of award.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Let's go to A5, Long Island Locksmith.
So A5 is another service blanket order for locksmith maintenance repair services. Again, there's only one bidder. This contract will help assist the county's locksmiths and facilities to address any issues that may arise. Our annual spend looks like $100,000 a year on this.
Any questions?
Okay, we're arguing. Are you aware of the situation at the jail that they're having a hard time finding a locksmith to help them?
I am not.
They're having a hard time finding a locksmith.
What I know is what I've heard in this chamber.
Okay. I don't know if there's any way we can correlate this with that. I know it's a maybe separate union or something, but from what the last update I remember, they really were relying upon one gentleman and, with that many locks.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do that. Can we assist them with this contract?
I don't know if this contract has them included or not. I don't know.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, do you know if something else is in the works for for the jail?
I am not, I'm not aware what the jail is doing on their behalf.
Okay. Would that come through Public Works?
No, they have their own facilities people.
Legislator Bino?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I have the same question regarding this contract for purchasing.
Claudia Colasurdo, Office of Purchasing. 17 people looked at this bid. We contacted all 17.
And
same scenario.
Same scenario?
Yep, don't do type of work. One, we left a message, not interested. Not interested, don't do type of work. So it goes out to everybody that registers for this particular commodity code. So the bid goes out electronically or electronically alerts the vendors that say they do this type of work. So they have the option to bid on it. They do call with questions. And then when we get low bid response, we do follow up with all the vendors to see what potentially, would they interested to bid, why wouldn't they want to bid, and so on. So in this case, same scenario as the previous contract.
I'm
Okay,
wondering-
and can...
I'm sorry, forgive me. I didn't know you were finished.
No problem. And so we called locksmith, and they said that they don't do lock repair, or?
They don't do this type of work. This is door service repair.
Door service repair.
Right.
Can I
Long
just-
Island Locksmith won the bid.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I just have one follow-up for Ken then.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ken, what kind of doors are we talking about here?
Any door within the county that has a lock on it.
So, and it's a lock repair. Is it they would come in and, are they repairing the hinges on the lock, or
I'd have to double check.
on the door rather, and, or is it the lock? Like, what is it?
To make sure that the locking feature works properly. So if the door's not closing and locking properly, this contractor would assist our staff if our staff couldn't address the issue.
And these are typically fire-rated doors?
Could be interior doors, could be all different types of doors. Any door with that has security associated with it.
And we're finding companies don't do that kind of work? That's odd to me. That seems odd to me. I mean, we're talking about regular locking mechanisms. I can't imagine that locksmith can't, other locksmith companies don't do this kind of work. Go ahead, Howard.
So, I'm kind of wondering, with all these one bid situations, what are the terms of payment? How long does it take until people get paid? Well, how long are they required to be paid, and how long does it take till they are paid?
I know on publicly bid contracts, I can't speak for purchase orders because that's not my area of expertise. But publicly bid contract, I believe the New York State GML requires payment within 45 days of an approvable claim.
So, do you know, as a matter of course, have people said that they don't want to do this because they don't get paid quickly enough?
On my publicly bid contracts, when I do this analysis, we do get some vendors that say that. Some vendors will say they don't want to bond for the project, and some vendors will say they don't have the insurance or the apprenticeship program. So on my contract, this is a purchase right contract, so I don't know all their processes.
So in your but your contracts, I mean, they would apply either case, I would assume.
I would think you'd get similar results.
You'd get similar results. So the issues then are time of payment, bonding?
Bonding, insurance, apprenticeship program.
And are any of these onerous for small businesses?
Apprenticeship program could be, because if they're not in an approved apprenticeship program, that would eliminate some people from applying for certain projects.
So a small locksmith can't,
You may not be, yeah, it's a mom and pop operation,
they're excluded.
Right, but I don't know if that applies to this contract. I'd have to go back and look at that. But insurance and bonding, I'm not sure bonding applies it, but I'm sure insurance does, and it could be an insurance requirement that they can't afford.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, okay. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anyone else? No. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Okay, the next item is E2. E2 is a contract amendment for Jacobs Engineering to supply project management assistance for our environmental facilities work. This is a amendment for 6 months for $356,000. We do have a contract being processed right now to replace this one. It's our on-call program management contracts where we'll do task orders to solicit a vendor for this. But right now I have a void that I have to fix the overlap, and that's what this amendment is for.
Okay. Any questions? We're good. Let's go on to the last one.
Last one is U1. U1 is a $12,000 contract with the Village of Lake Success for DWI enforcement. This is funding that's passed through the Traffic Safety Board from New York State. This is a 5-year contract for $2,500 per year.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Ken. Next contract is with TIPFA, E1 of 2022 with Top Key reporting.
Good afternoon. It's Mark Mullen and Christopher Gamoka with Traffic and Parking. The New York State VTL requires that certain proceedings at TPVA be transcribed, including conferences, trials, and other meetings. The contract is to provide court stenographers to TPVA to fulfill the county's legal obligation to provide that service. Top Key has been providing these services to the agency since 2010 and is a certified women-owned business enterprise. The contract is for a 3-year term with 2 one-year extensions for a total of 5 years.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last contract is with, I think, the Budget Office with E3 of 2022 and Triad Group. Let the record reflect that Legislator Rhodes is leaving the chambers. He's recusing himself. He will not be participating in any debate, discussion, or vote on this item.
Chris Nolan from the Office of Management Budget. Item E322 is a contract with the Triad Group to act as the county's administrator for workers' compensation claims. Triad was selected through an RFP issued last May. The county received responses from 9 firms. 2 of those firms were deemed non-responsive. Of the remaining 7 firms, the committee ranked and evaluated, and in each category, Triad was ranked the highest, and so that's why they are being recommended for you today.
All right. Any questions? Sure.
I was just curious how the payment goes for them. Is this part of your budget?
Yes.
Okay, so you can pay them directly. Right, that's okay, I'm just being asked to read something into the record. According to Exhibit B, these payments are not subject to voucher procedural as described in Section 4B of this agreement. However, the contractor may be required to certify to the actual of charges to provide the sufficient backup supporting the amount claimed as requested by the county. So basically, we just want to put on the record that the payments aren't subject to the voucher procedure that's described in our 4.B of the agreement. Is that correct? Okay, that's all that we wanted to put on the record.
Okay.
Legislator Schaefer.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Quick question. So we've been using this group for quite a while now, is that correct?
Yes, I believe they've been about 15 years.
Okay. Is this a service that we could do in-house at all? Is that an opportunity to save any money?
I would say no.
No?
No.
Don't have the staff for it, or just not
Yes, you'd have to staff up to account for this. Again, they've been doing this for about 15 years. They have a very good history of the county's claims process, and they're really among the cheapest of the firms that responded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, excellent. with respect to, hold on a second, please. Okay, is there any public comment on those contracts?
Meta J. Mariday, just a quick question. I guess it's just a confirmation that the Triad Group in consideration is the one based in Troy, New York? Is it Troy, New York?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, cool. I would definitely support having that company. It is something that I have dealt with, again, as a 9/11 first responder and having to deal with workers' compensation. They've also proven to be very efficient and accurate in terms of their proceedings and representation in that manner. But having said that, the other questions that were brought up by Legislator Bino are something that are very concerning for the fact that I believe only one other company, and again, Triad is a woman-owned business, so I'm very encouraged by that. But only one other contract that was mentioned here was highlighted that it was a woman-owned business. I have yet to hear emphasized or stressed or addressed here with the fact that minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses continue to be left out of the mix, even as a possible subcontractor. So I'm gravely concerned with regard to the same list or same outreach activities that are involved with the procurement activities, having served for a number of years as a vice president for the New York, New Jersey Minority Purchasing Council, where I know that there are many businesses having, in fact, also made sure that there was diversity and inclusion in the rebuild of the Twin Towers. I know that there are HVAC companies of color that could perform the work, even on a subcontract basis. I feel that we need to do better in terms of our outreach and our procurement and our purchasing efforts. The long, dusty Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Act, the VOBA Act, I don't really feel that that's being initiated here to its fullest potential. So I just want to again put that on the table. There has been a long-standing problem with the lack of representation and inclusion on apprenticeship programs in construction, having worked with a major construction firm, Turner Construction Corporation, who initiated on their own time and dime apprenticeship programs that made opportunities more accessible for minority contractors who were too often left out of that mix. Again, I'm asking that now in 2022 that we step up our efforts to be more inclusive, as well as the equity portion of these contracts and access. And if there's a possibility to review how and where these purchasing agreements and requests are disseminated, that is what I am looking forward to seeing at this point. And also to make sure that no friends, relatives, and close associates are involved with the contracting or the specific companies involved. Let's just put it on the table ahead of time before it becomes a News 12 or a Newsday announcement. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, I'll have a vote on the E3 2022 Triad contract first. So all in favor of that contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously by a vote of 6-0. You can invite Legislator Rhodes back in. So now we're going to vote on the other contracts, A2, A4, A5, E1, E2, U1. All in favor of those contracts signify by saying aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
They carry unanimously. I'll put the Rules Committee in recess so we can now move on to the other committees. I don't know, which committee's next? Public Safety? Who's after Public Safety? Oh, Planning. Okay, so Public Safety, then Planning is after that.
All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, ma'am. Legislator Deborah Muley, Legislator Sheila Bino, Ranking Member Delia DeRigi-Witten, Legislator John Ferretti, Legislator Mazi Melissa Phillip,
Here.
Vice Chairman Stephen Rhodes, Chairwoman Denise Ford. We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, there are 3 items on the agenda today, which are clerk item numbers 13-22, 14-22, and 26-22. Clerk item number 13-22 is an ordinance supplemental to an appropriation ordinance in connection with the police department. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Phillips, seconded by Legislator Bino. The item is before us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, William Field, Inspector from the Police Department. Item 13-22 is supplemental appropriation to appropriate $455,070 in funds received from the New York State Department of Homeland Security. This program is designed to provide law enforcement agencies with resources to purchase and supplement their capabilities in detecting and disrupting acts of terrorism. About $133,452 will be set aside for police training and exercises, and about $290,000 will be set aside for equipment purchases.
Thank you. Any debated discussion from any legislators? No? Any public comment? All right. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk item number 14-22 is an ordinance supplemental to an appropriation ordinance in connection with the probation department. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Giuffre and seconded by Legislator Millay. The item is before us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Ford, Vice Chairman Rhodes, members of the legislature, Douglas Landsman, probation. The item before you is item number 14-22. It's an annual renewable grant from New York State DCJS. The purpose of this grant is to assist parolees freshly released from prison to make a smooth transition from incarceration back into public society, sometimes many years or a decade later. This will help them reintegrate back into our community and society to lead productive lives and become good citizens.
Thank you. It's very commendable that, we do this. And, what is it like to help them with education, finding housing?
Exactly. It's one of our best grants. It helps people who have been in prison many, many years come out. We try and find housing for them. We train them for learning how, we give them education, learning how to prepare resumes, how to dress. It's basically almost like the movie Shawshank Redemption that you see on TV. People now come out. Many times they're bewildered. What do they do? So this grant really focuses on helping people get back into society.
Good. Any other questions? Any public comment? Oh, go right ahead. Just know it was Legislator Ferretti who's on the...
I just had a quick question. Are you based anywhere in particular, or how do you disseminate the grant?
Well, we have primarily, who works on the grant, we have an outside agency, Leadership Training Institute, that had won a bid, and they primarily administer the grant. We have a small amount of money that probation department keeps for administrative purposes, but it's Leadership Training Institute that actually performs the grant. We monitor them every month to see how they've been doing in terms of milestones and how many people they've seen and so on, and how we can help them move this grant forward.
I know the DA also has an outreach office. We actually attended there. I know it was in Hempstead on Coda Road. Coda? Oh, that's the name of it. Coda. I said where it was.
Is that Community Partnership? You're talking about CPP?
No, Coda. I'm gonna.
Well, you know what? You're right. They changed the Coda to CPP.
Merged, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right.
Do you offer any funding through their agency as well?
No, I'm not familiar with that program.
because your mission statements seem to coincide, very similar. So maybe it would be a good.
It must be something a little bit different. I don't, and this is unfortunate. I'm sorry.
Oh, Carrier. Can someone text him?
Sorry.
Yeah, I think he's saying sorry to someone else. Okay. Okay, so you're not, do you have any, so you don't really have an office then, right? You just work for different agencies?
No, it's primarily based through Leadership Training Institute.
You should maybe look into this group, because it really is a very similar mission statement, and the DA, they're doing a fantastic job too.
What's the name of the program again?
It's what you stated before. It was CODA, changing thoughts or something to that effect through action.
T for C? Is that one of the programs?
Well, it was CODA, and I forget exactly what it stands for, but I know it was changing thoughts through action or something to that effect. But it's now CPP, as you stated, and they're hubbed out of Hempstead, right behind the courts on Center Street, I believe it is. And so I think they have a very similar mission, and I think some of those folks, your probation, and I think I don't think they've gone fully through the system to even be probationers. And I think you might be targeting two different groups of individuals who are court involved. But where is Leadership Training Institute? Are they in Hempstead?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
In Clinton Street.
They're on Clinton Street.
Yes.
And that's the only location where they provide the service?
I believe so.
Okay.
They do have, of course, job fairs, and they go into the public, and so on.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
So then Leadership Institute, do they get funding from elsewhere or just through the county?
Well, I know this particular grant, they get $190,000 out of the $201,000.
Oh, okay. All right. So probably some, but maybe it depends upon the clients, I guess, for one of it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. Thank you very much. No, thank you. Okay. Clerk, item number 2622 is an ordinance supplemental to an appropriation ordinance in connection with the medical examiner. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator Ferretti. Okay. The item is before us. Who is here to? Oh, good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. Karen Dooling, Assistant Director of the Crime Lab. This is a no-match grant for $304,592 from NIJ, and it's to assist with reducing DNA backlogs, casework backlogs, and it's for equipment, supplies, instrument contracts, and overtime.
So then actually, so that you could process DNA a little bit swifter, or, it's very good.
Yeah, for equipment that will help us decrease turnaround time, for overtime to decrease turnaround time, supplies, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other public, no? Any public comment? I see none. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes unanimously. Thank you very much. There is no other business in front of this committee. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Ferretti. All those in favor? Okay, the committee is now adjourned. Have a good afternoon. Planning is next.
I'd like to call the Planning Development Environment Committee to order, and I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Sheila Bino. Ranking Member Carrier Solage.
Here.
Legislator Denise Ford. Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Vice Chairman Thomas McKevitt. Here. Chairwoman Laura Schaefer.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. I believe Legislator McKevitt is going to be recusing himself from this item. Okay, so there is one item on the agenda today, which is clerk item number 11-22. Clerk item number 11-22 is a resolution to authorize the release of the surety bond and escrow deposit covering improvements on the map of Toretta Estates situated in Farmingdale, Town of Oyster Bay, County of Nassau, New York. May I have a motion? So moved by Legislator Ford, seconded by Legislator Giuffre. Okay, this item is before us. Mr. Sally.
Good afternoon. Sean Sally, Nassau County Department of Public Works. This is an application for a release of bond, a surety bond, and escrow fee for the subdivision map name known as Toretta Estates in the village of Farmingdale. The proposed release includes a bond covering the cost of public improvements in the amount of $503,285.32 and an escrow deposit also covering public improvements in the amount of $17,627.38. The application was first brought before the Nassau County Planning Commission for a recommendation to this legislature. On November 4th, 2021, the County Planning Commission recommended approval of the release of bond and escrow after testimony and public comment. I'm prepared to answer any questions that the legislature may have.
Okay, I'm just going to start with the first question. Can you tell me what public improvements are covered by this?
Sure. In this case, the public improvements, I actually have the bond estimate in my possession. Let me just pull it out here. So for this particular single-family subdivision, the bonded improvements included grading and drainage in the public realm of the subdivision, which included the cul-de-sac, which was slated for dedication to the village of Farmingdale, and also a retaining wall, a single retaining wall in the rear of, spanning the rear of several homes on the north side of the subdivision. Paving for the cul-de-sac, sidewalks, again associated with the cul-de-sac, driveway aprons, curb and gutter, again part of the cul-de-sac, storm drains and dry wells, that's drainage pertaining solely to the cul-de-sac, sanitary sewer infrastructure, diffusion well, dry well, I already mentioned for the roadway, the retaining wall, as I mentioned, fencing, PVC fencing at the western end of the subdivision, street signs, street lighting, and monuments, survey monuments, again within the public realm, within the public right-of-way, water supply, water mains, and sediment and erosion control measures, hay bales, silt fencing for the associated with the construction phase of the project.
Okay, thank you. Can you also tell me if the county has received any complaints regarding this project?
We did receive comments at the Planning Commission hearing for the recommendation for release of surety bond. We actually received 4 notifications of opposition, one being from the neighbors to the north of the subdivision, which lie actually up gradient, and several other neighbors in the immediate vicinity. Those comments were read into the record by at the Planning Commission level.
Okay, and has there been any, has there been anything done in response to the comments? I mean, to the comments, the complaints?
Sure. So the comments were, the majority of the comments were from the neighbor to the north of the subdivision. and involving potential slope destabilization abutting the property to the north and the subject subdivision. The county Department of Public Works has a construction inspector that's assigned to all subdivision applications within the Planning Commission purview or jurisdiction. So an initial inspection report was performed prior to the public meeting that recommended the release of the bond and escrow. At the meeting, there was comments, again, read into the record. Within the 1 week between the hearing and the vote, our construction inspector met with the building department, met with some of the neighbors, and went back out to the site to review the comments, and concluded and found that while there are aesthetic issues, garbage, silt fencing that was not installed properly, or construction fencing, I should say, they were not germane to the public improvement bond being held by the County Planning Commission. A lot of the issues were under the jurisdiction of the village, and again, a lot were aesthetic. The structural issues that were pointed out around the retaining wall and the potential destabilization of the slope and structural issues, our construction inspector, after consulting with the village and the reports that the village had received, after consulting with the developer, after reviewing the site, found that there were no issues with the constructed public improvements, and again, that the bond and escrow should be released. Our construction inspector did, in speaking with the village, confirm that COs have been issued for 4 of the homes on the north side. Those homes abut the retaining walls, I should say, are within those building lots. Again, that grading, everything, including the homes, are subject to the jurisdiction of the building department. So in issuing the COs, our construction inspector felt comfortable that, again, all of the proper reviews were performed, the investigation was performed, and the work was done satisfactory to both the village requirements as well as the county's.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding Legislator Ford?
All right, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Legislator Schaefer. All right, but with you're saying that the property is adjacent to homeowners. Like, how many homes were built in the Toretta construction site?
So it's a 10-lot subdivision. 6 homes have been built to date. There is I'm just trying to pull up pull out the map here.
And this, it looks like a hilly area, correct?
I'm sorry?
Is this basically a hilly area?
Yes,
because of the need for retaining walls? Yeah.
Exactly, Legislator. It slopes from north to south, so the north side had to be held back by the retaining walls. As part of the design, the initial design that was approved by the Planning Commission and the Village of Farmingdale and the Town of Oyster Bay, the town line actually cuts diagonally through the site. But there was one retaining wall proposed, and that retaining wall was bonded under the county bond and escrow. During the course of construction, after consultation with the village, as I understand it, 2 additional retaining walls were requested and were constructed at the northeastern portion of the site. Those were inspected by the village, but they were not covered under the county bond because, again, they were initiated post subdivision approval by the county.
So what the way then it's designed is that if the house is up higher than an adjacent property that's been there, a home that's been there, it doesn't necessarily require a retaining wall, like you would have it.
In this case, it's actually flipped. The existing homes on the north are up gradient of the proposed subdivision, and the homes that are being built directly to the south. So the retaining wall is holding back that slope between the newly created homes and the existing homes that are at a higher elevation.
Okay, so the existing homes are higher elevation, but we don't have, are there retaining walls for all of the houses surrounding? I mean, because what keeps you from having erosion and flooding going in from a higher house to a lower house?
Right, so the retaining walls, there are three. They cover five of the 6 homes on the north side.
Right.
Again, where that hill is. What it basically does, it creates like a stepping configuration so that the upper level is essentially graded flat, if you will. Then there's the wall, and then there's the new property. So all of that stormwater that would fall on the upgraded would need to be maintained within that area.
Okay, so, but who put the retaining wall in?
The developer. The retaining walls are on the
new side,
on the new
not-
properties.
okay.
That's right.
And then, all the fencing has been installed, that is required?
So we did, at the time of the Planning Commission meeting, there's an estate fence that was promised by the developer after discussing it with the neighbors to the north. A state fence to be constructed along the top of the retaining wall.
Okay.
At the time of the Planning Commission release in November, the easternmost section of that fence had yet to be completed. My understanding, we spoke to the developer last week, that has been completed. And the estate fence that is within or on top of the retaining wall. That was not bonded as part of the county bond because it was not discussed or designed during. The county did bond a PVC fence that was installed at the western side of the fence of the property, but that was more of an aesthetic, buffering, visual buffer.
And then, so all the construction fencing is down? There's no construction fencing anywhere?
My understanding is the northeast property, so lot 1, is under construction. There's a foundation there now. The developer did tell me and my staff that the proper construction fencing had been erected. And if it has not been, that is a town, or in this case, a village building jurisdiction. My understanding is they have inspectors that, drive by the site routinely, and if the proper construction security and safety measures are not being, complied with, that there, that there are remedies for that.
So, considering that Legislator Shaver had asked about, were there any complaints from residents, I guess people who that live close to this or next to this, and you said that there have been some complaints from some of the neighbors who do live adjacent. Has the construction company met with these residents and satisfied all their complaints?
From the testimony because this question was asked at the Planning Commission meeting, and that testimony reads, that yes, the developer did meet with the neighbors during the subdivision design phase, because in this case, the village also had to approve the subdivision. It's one of these cases where it's double subdivision map jurisdiction, but and then during the construction, there had been back and forth between the neighbors, the developer, the village, and I can't say that everybody's happy with with how it's been going, but we didn't hear anything from the village or our construction inspector that the county planning commission felt would warrant holding off on recommending the bond release. So I think things that are typical of construction nuisance, that sort of thing.
Well, let me just ask, what happens, if we release the bond, right? And then we find out that there were neighbors with legitimate concerns as to what happened. And trees were taken down, or fences the fence maybe wasn't put in properly or whatever, and we already released this bond.
Yep.
How do we get them then, this Toretta, to go back and fix everything?
And right, and unfortunately that happens, in many of these cases. If trees were cut down that shouldn't have been cut down, or trees were destabilized, or roots were cut, and compromised the tree. Unfortunately, it's not a county planning commission public improvement jurisdiction issue. It's really, in this case, the town of Oyster Bay and the village of Farmingdale. That's really the remedy. The retaining wall that's covered by the county bond, if that was installed and it was not structurally sound, that would be the county's jurisdiction to ensure that, or to not release the monies until that situation was addressed. But in this case, again, if there are trees that were cut down that maybe maybe shouldn't have been, that would be the local building jurisdiction.
Does the town or the village, do they have any surety bonds? Are they holding anything at all, or are we just the only ones holding back money?
I don't know if they hold bonds for, you know, like single-family housing permit applications. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Legislator Drucker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Sean, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Good. So, I guess we've all been presented with these photos. Have you seen them?
I have, yes.
Okay, so, and you keep mentioning about, you know, a lot of the complaints were of an aesthetic nature. Do these photos look like things that are of an aesthetic nature?
I think if there are, you know, I see there were trees that looked to be, you know, compromised or cut or limbs. Because that's not covered under the county planning commission and its staff, its construction inspectors, do not oversee all aspects of a subdivision application. The county is just concerned with the public improvements covered under the bond. So things of that nature would really be the responsibility of the local building jurisdiction.
Okay, I agree. I understand that. So, you stated that the potential for runoff, erosion, instability affects 5 of the 10 single-family homes. Is that what you stated?
The retaining walls that were constructed cover 5 of the 10 lots.
So then, by definition, Sean, does that not impact or is relevant to the public improvement bond? Because it's the public, it's 5 houses, so it doesn't affect, it does in a way affect the public, and that the bond would cover. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same wavelength.
Right. So, I mean, public improvement, it's you know, we're talking physical improvements, physical infrastructure-related improvements. In this case, the designer at the time of you know, engineering the site found that in order to stabilize the slope, retaining wall needed to be constructed to hold back the hill to the north and to allow for adequate stormwater management. That design was signed off by the project engineer, was signed off by the department, by the village, by the town. And so the infrastructure that was put in place pursuant to the approved plans was done so, again, in accordance with the design. That was signed off by the village, the town, and then the county. You know, the type of ground cover that they're planting, you know, whether it's gravel, grass, patios, things of that nature, that's not under the county's subdivision.
I agree. I mean, the pictures that we're presented with, they're a little disturbing. It doesn't appear to us, based on these photos, and I think my colleagues on this committee will attest, it looks more than aesthetic. But my question though is, so as far as the bond is the county bond, are the only requirements to fulfill the release of the bond that you've conducted the public hearing and you've scheduled the inspection and you've attended or remediated some of the concerns by some of the homeowners? Is that all that's required? I'm just curious of what the actual terms of the escrow agreement are that would warrant the release of the bond.
Right. So if you know, and again, in Nassau, we're sort of a unique, you know, county in New York State where the local jurisdiction, the county has subdivision jurisdiction in this case. The locals have the building jurisdiction. So that the bonding, the escrow is actually just a percentage. If the bond, I'm sorry, if the public improvements total, let's say $10,000, just a small portion of that is held in cash escrow, and the remainder in bond. So that's the difference between the two securities.
I'm concerned about the release of it, though. What are the requirements for the release of it?
So for, you know, in this case, a retaining wall or pavement or sidewalks or drainage or sewer, the bond and the escrow is to ensure that those infrastructure elements are installed according to the plans, according to the engineering plans, done so correctly. In that case, a positive recommendation can be issued. In a case where a developer, may not put in the pipe correctly, or the asphalt doesn't meet the specs, walks off the job, hey, I'm done, that cash escrow and bond is meant for the county to be able to go out and procure a construction contractor to do the job right. Thankfully, that hasn't had to occur in my tenure here, but that's really the purpose of it.
So I guess you can confidently say that based on a September 17th, 2021 final inspection, Nassau County DPW is satisfied with the existing situation there. Is that correct?
Yes, and there was actually a follow-up inspection by the same county inspector on November 3rd, or the report was dated November 3rd. That inspection took place after the Planning Commission hearing on October 27th, I believe it was, where the issues were discussed. The commission asked our construction inspector to go back out to the site, view based on the photos that we received, and he followed up with a second report that again found that or he did not find any issues that would where he would not recommend that the commission accept the release.
I think we have, is that Attorney Whalen? Attorney Whalen is going to be speaking to us, and maybe after she speaks, we might have some more follow-up questions. Sean, thank you. Certainly.
Okay, well, let me ask first, before Ms. Whalen steps up, are there any other legislators that have questions? Okay, Legislator Bino. Oh, no, you want to wait? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Okay,
Good
so
afternoon,
public
honorable
comment?
legislators. I appreciate the time that you're taking to listen to me and to my client's concern, and I have nothing but respect for Mr. Sally, who I've worked with for very many years. My name is Janice Whalen. I'm an attorney. My office is at 23 Green Street, Suite 302 in Huntington. I represent the Lapidus family, who reside immediately, the Lapidus family reside immediately abutting the subdivision. So here we have Toretta lots 1 through 6, and our common property line is about a 537-foot common boundary. We sit below lot 1, but the topography sharply shifts to where we're almost 45 feet above Toretta lot 6. I respectfully disagree that the retaining walls are retaining anything of consequence. They are grossly insufficient. Some of the pictures that I show you today show estate fencing between that sits maybe like a little bit below our berm, where you could see our property is coming over the base of the estate fencing. So we don't have a potential for erosion. We have actual ongoing erosion. Our property has over 500 feet of berm, and there were 100-year-old mature trees. I've submitted to you 21 photographs that show trees leaning into the Toretta property. I'm an applicant's attorney. I don't generally oppose applications. I'm on the development side. But here, when this client asked me to come and take a look at his property, I'm not an engineer, but I could see to the naked eye that the retaining walls are not retaining anything of consequence. There's not a potential for runoff. There is runoff. We don't have an aesthetic issue. We could live with what's happening in construction, but if everything's done and everyone's going to walk away, we're losing property, and the constituents who are living in lots or going to be living in lots 1 through 6 are going to be receiving our property. Mr. Lapidus would be appearing with me today because he's lived with us for 3 years. Unfortunately, he lost his father early this morning. I told him that I would advocate for him. It's a common sense land development principle that any off-site improvements shouldn't destabilize the property of an adjoining property owner. The right of lateral support is a common law and common sense land planning principle, embodying the principle that a property owner has the right to their soil in its natural condition. without being caused to fall away by excavation and improvement of an abutting property owner. And if a property owner here, my client's land is destabilized, that adjacent property owner who did the excavation should be strictly liable to put that property back in condition. Listen, trees were removed, they're gone. But what we're concerned about is the further erosion of our property. I showed you pictures where you could look straight down. I think engineers tell me that a 3-on-1 pitch is something that should be, looked for. I can't find any pitch requirements either in the village of Farmingdale or the town of Oyster Bay. Now, I know that what I'm asking you to do is look at the larger picture, and I understand that Mr. Sally said, listen, everything that was done and it was inspected. But the practical effect is that we've got my client's property and trees leaning towards the Toretta property. It's just not right. Everybody should drain on their own property. Everybody should stabilize their own property. None of this happened before the excavation, and all of it has happened since the excavation. I grew up in the area. I didn't know that there was such steeply sloped properties in Farmingdale. But you could see, I believe it's my first picture, the excavation, it's over 25 feet. And what we've been left with is something that we're just begging that somebody take a look at this and not say, well, it's not us, it's somebody. And we're going to have constituents that are very unhappy, not the least of which is my client, because he's losing trees and property. I understand that that this board has limited jurisdiction. I understand that you're just looking at, was this installed and was it signed off on? But I think the pictures show a lot. I would welcome an inspection where we want to work with the developer, we want to be good neighbors, but we don't want to have our property and our trees slide into a beautiful subdivision. No one's going to be happy about it. And again, I welcome the opportunity to meet with the legislators, any committee members, and the developer. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator, before you go, I just have a question. Mr. Sally, there were 4 retaining walls, is that correct? 3, okay. Is the one that's impacting the property that Ms. Whalen here is representing, is that covered under the bond?
I believe it is.
Okay. You can come up.
It's not one Toretta lot, it's 6 Toretta lots.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the first lot in our corner, the furthest away from Merritt's Road, actually sits at a higher grade than us. And then all of a sudden it shifts where we're 45 feet above them. You know, we've got in the first lot right by Merritt's Road, the only thing preventing somebody from falling off that precipice is an orange construction fence.
Mm-hmm.
A guardrail is not going to retain earth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just think that I understand that your time is very precious and limited, but this is worth a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Legislator Bino, did you have questions first? And then Legislator Drucker.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Mr. Sally. And forgive me if I'm having you restate something, but the intended purpose of the retaining wall was exactly what? It wasn't aesthetics. So what was...
Right.
It wasn't for the benefit of noise barrier. What was the intended?
Right. Because the land slopes generally north to south, in order to create a lot suitable for building, in this case, to create a level lot, they needed to essentially cut into the slope and hold that slope back by way of a retaining wall.
And what test would the county undertake to ensure that that retaining wall was actually living out the purpose?
In most cases, it's a visual inspection. Are there cracks? Are there other visual issues with the wall that would indicate that it's not it wasn't built properly? It's subject to failure. Also, in this case, the wall was permitted by the town and village building departments as part of their building jurisdiction. So the local inspectors were also on the site, as I understand, inspecting against that permit. I'm not sure if they do more of a deeper dive in terms of the inspection, whether they take core samples, inspect while the soil is being excavated and prior to the wall being put in place. I don't know how the village inspects this type of thing, but the county would not issue a permit for this type of improvement. It's out of our jurisdiction.
But it is considered a public improvement, am I correct?
It is, and because the way the subdivision law is, the towns would not bond the public improvement. So if anything happened to go wrong, the county would be the one to come in and save the day in terms of paying for the, in this case, the retaining wall to be built correctly. But the real, the call to say in this case, this wall was not constructed properly, it's got issues, would really be the local building department. Both of these lots were CO'd and are sold and are occupied. So,
Would it make sense that, given the fact that they are the entity that would be charged with making those determinations, but we're in fact then, we would actually, what's the word I want to say? We would actually have to, as a guarantor, so to speak, we would have to then be responsible for any remedying in the event that it wasn't. Shouldn't we at least have copies of those reports, given the magnitude of these allegations or assertions?
we do have copies of the COs. We could certainly ask the village for copies of their inspection reports, if, however they do their, inspection documentation, we could certainly ask for all that.
I think given the level of these assertions and some of the pictures, the illustrations we have, that really kind of has us having more questions than answers, I think the benefit of us having reviewed those things would really put my heart or mind at rest, at least that we have some firm belief and some assertions from the local municipality that they did everything that is required to be able to tell us provide some record to this body that they did the necessary inspections. I think that's warranted at this time.
We can certainly reach out if...
I think, I would ask this body to consider tabling until we at least have those reports.
So I
Thank
could just...
you, legislator. Sorry.
Thank you,
Did you
Madam
have something
Chair.
to say?
I just have one question can I ask Ms. Whalen a question? So, I think you have really presented a very clear and convincing case on behalf of the Lapiduses as to damages and causes of action for various violations of either code or construction, really with consequential damages to your client. But our jurisdiction is limited to determining whether or not the complaints, the allegations made, relate to the bond, the public bond, which is held for ensuring that the public improvement is done correctly. So
I understand.
your claim, and you've done it very well, really supports a very clear case on behalf of the Lapiduses. But how does it present a clear and convincing case for the public at large?
Well, I would submit that the public improvement encompasses the grading. The grading has not been done in any meaningful manner. The grading is actually grading down towards the Toretta properties. So if grading wasn't done sufficiently, and you could see in the pictures that the earth is moving down, the trees are tilting down, then it is part of the public improvement.
But we're not seeing complaints from anyone else except Lapidus.
I would disagree. I don't represent anybody else on that Merritt's Road flag lot, but I believe that those people have in fact, and he complains, and Mr. Alex Lapidus, is the most significantly affected, because his property goes for that whole 537 feet.
I understand that, but if 5 of the 10 lots are impacted by this faulty construction and development, it would give us more of a basis to withhold our consent to the release of the bond if we heard from them echoing the same complaint rather than just one homeowner.
But I would submit to you that every piece of property is different. The Lapidus's own this whole strip. These homeowners have a road abutting between their property and the berm that we own. So they're not losing property. We are not similarly situated to them. We don't have the benefit of a buffer road in between. Maybe at some point that road is going to start eroding, but right now we are the most significantly impacted.
But again, you're losing property, so you have a cause of action and a claim on behalf of Lapidus. Clearly, you should bring your case to court and recover damages.
Unfortunately, the case law is not that simple. The case law, and we've already researched that, indicates that you already have to suffer the loss of your property before you really have a viable cause of action. How can we continue to give certificates, give approvals, when it's just, it goes against any theory of lateral support?
I don't disagree, but again, as Mr. Sally said, that's the town of Oyster Bay and the village of Farmingdale, right? They're the ones who issued the COs and the permits.
I come to you because Mr. Lapidus is a constituent. These homeowners are constituents. These are constituents. And I would respectfully request that the release of this bond be tabled until I have an opportunity to meet with the legislators in this area so they could take a look at it. I'm not the greatest photographer in the world, but I think those photographs show some pretty damning proof.
Well, the photographs are dated of 2019.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
I took many of them in 2021, late 2021. And I would also submit that when I appeared before the Nassau County Planning Commission on Zoom, they did not see all my pictures. They saw maybe 1 or 2. So I'm here begging that somebody not say it's somebody else. Because if somebody gets hurt or one of these 100-year-old trees fall into these beautiful new homes, everyone's going to say, why was this just pushed along? Why was it just moved down? It's not us. It's somebody. And we had support. We never had erosion or destabilization. Now we do. The only thing that's changed is the excavation that took place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just, one other thing I was going to say is that, well, I forgot what I was going to say.
All right, thanks. Legislator Giuffre, do you have a question?
Sure, I do. Thank you, Chairwoman and legislators. Mr. Sally, did I hear you right? If there's a problem with the retaining wall, the county's got to pay to fix it?
If they're, not necessarily. If the wall, let's give an example. The wall goes for sign-off by the local building department. It fails sign-off, and the developer walks. Well, no, I did it correctly. I'm out. The county can then come in, pull the bond, and pay to have the wall, redone correctly.
Make a claim on the bond and collect the money.
Yes,
is that right?
Go after but also have it, rebuilt correctly, or address the remedy.
All right, Ms. Whalen, is it your contention that the retaining wall was not built correctly?
It couldn't have been, because if it were built correctly, I wouldn't be standing here. We can see photographic proof of estate fencing where there is land above the base. So it's obviously the retaining wall is not doing its job. And I want to be very clear, there's not a retaining wall that goes for 537 feet. There's some retaining walls hither and yon, but it's not the whole length. And that's why I think a visual inspection would probably give you a better idea than my words.
What was the developer's response to your complaint? What you just said to me now, when you pointed that out to the developer, what was the response?
I never received an answer.
I think you got your answer.
Madam Chair, just one quick question.
Not doing it.
Okay, Legislator
I just
Drucker.
want to say, based on all of the testimony here, perhaps we would all be better served with an opinion from our county attorney on whether or not the allegations made do impact on the public improvement bond that, for the purpose that it's being held. Maybe we need some opinion on whether or not it rises to that level, or is it an individual, grievance? Or is it something that really impacts the public safety, the public good, which we as legislators have to approve the release of the bond? So maybe we should get an opinion.
Okay, an idea. Legislator Ford?
Well noted. Sean, I just have a question. Who determined the height of the retaining wall and the length of the retaining wall? Was that done by the county, or was that done by the village?
Well, no, actually the designer, the engineer of record for the developer during the design of the subdivision while it was going through the approvals process.
So it was up to the developer to determine the height of the retaining wall, and our sole purpose then would be to say that it was a sound retaining wall. We ourselves don't look at the possible impact if you have a retaining wall like that would be 6 feet high, but yet the property extends above it by 8 feet.
We would look at it, so when the subdivision was going through the approval process, the wall was proposed. The engineer of record looked at the property and said, in order to make this work, we're going to need a retaining wall. The county, particularly the Department of Public Works, would look at it through the lens of, will this prevent stormwater from running off this site, right? Will it do the job of, keeping the runoff at bay? The town and the village building departments would review it for structural integrity, just like they would review the building or the home for, again, structural purposes. The county would not necessarily, because it's it's within the 2 private property lots, we would not necessarily do a full engineering review on whether or not it's structurally sound, the design. That would be the responsibility of the building department, of the local building department.
So it'd be the jurisdiction of like either the village or the town. I don't know who has the building department that gives. So then, because I know that Legislator Drucker brings up an important point, because we're releasing this for the benefit of the public, for public land. But I don't remember, like, if the public is determined as 100 people or if it's just one person. And it seems to me that the one public person that has a property adjacent to this has some serious issues. And I think that I myself would like to see this resolved before we allow the release of any monies, because I am concerned, only because if the land runoff, or even if the trees, like if they're leaning over, and I think that we have to allow some time for those who would like to go take a look at this. I think it's only fair. I mean, you do a great job. I mean, we're not questioning you, but I think that this has raised some concerns. I know for me it has, but thank you.
Sure, understood. And I think just to even make the point about the photos, if they were taken prior to the wall being erected, or during the wall being constructed, the construction activity, unfortunately trees are felled or taken down. That is different than the wall being fully constructed. You're taking a picture and the land, slumping, even with the retaining wall in place. That's 2 different issues there. I would imagine that the building departments take this very seriously, because it's not only preserving or maintaining the upland property, but God forbid that slope were to fail, it's going to take out, properties to the south. So it's not only the Lapidus' property, but it's also the newly constructed lots, right? So
I know, because it seems like it slopes like somehow or another. I mean, I'm jealous. I live in a beach community. I don't know anything about hills. So, but the way you describe it is like, I guess the family has the high on one side and then they're down on the other. So yeah, so it is a concern. I think that some people would like to take a look at this. Not that we're engineers, but.
And I just want to draw a distinction between, I'm sure that Mr. Sally's office inspected, and it's structurally sound. But structurally sound is distinct from doing its job. You know, it's not just the soundness of the wall. I'm sure the wall is fine. It's just not retaining the earth it's supposed to. And I consulted with a civil engineer, and he said he couldn't find anything in the Village of Farmingdale or Town of Oyster Bay zoning code that talked about pitch, and that we should know what the allowable pitch is, because at some point, pitch is not going to be able to be retained by a wall, no matter how structurally sound it is. And I would, just to confirm, with the exception of the first photograph, all of the pictures that I submitted were taken right before the Planning Commission hearing. Obviously, the excavation photograph was taken years ago, but all of the others were conditions that existed at the time that I was making my pitch to the Nassau County Planning Commission.
When was that?
I believe it was just in the fall of last year, in November.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be in touch with Ms. Walker's office, and I thank you very much for listening to me today.
Okay, Mr. Sally, I just have a quick question, and then we are, I think, going to move to table this. You mentioned before this, so we know the local jurisdictions would have to be the ones to sign off on it. This was not yet signed off on by them, or it was?
No, this was.
This was, okay.
The wall, yes. The road was, the wall was signed off by the village and the town, and then the road is actually to be dedicated to the village. The village and the developer have an agreement. It has not yet been formally dedicated, but the village was indicated to the Planning Commission that it did not object to the road being, or to the subdivision being, the bond being released, as the road will be dedicated to the village.
Okay. I'd like to get those inspection reports that we talked about earlier, and if anybody, if Legislator Drucker wants to seek an county attorney opinion, go right ahead and do that. And anything else anybody else has, we'll make a request to you. I know there are discrepancies between what's signed off on and what isn't, and what it means to sign off on the wall being structurally sound, but there's just a lot of questions here, and obviously, potentially even a public safety issue, so I think we're going to move to table. So do I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Okay, by Legislator Giuffre, seconded by Legislator Drucker. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. Okay, there's no other business before this committee. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, so moved by Legislator Drucker, seconded by Legislator Ford. Planning, Development, Environment is now adjourned. The next committee is Public Works.
Okay, at this time, I'll call the Public Works Committee to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman.
You ready? Go ahead.
Public Works, roll call. Legislator Carrier Solage.
Here.
Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Sheila Bino. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Vice Chairman John Giuffre.
Here.
Chairman C. William Gaylord III.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, sir. There are two items on the agenda today, which are clerk items numbers 12-22 and 27-22. Clerk item number 12-22 and 27-22 are ordinances supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Department of Public Works. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator John Giuffre and seconded by Legislator Laura Schaefer. Thank you. The item is before us. I see that we have Commissioner Ken Arnold from the administration, from DPW. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, committee. So item 12-22 is a supplemental to bond ordinance as stated for funding from New York State for $4.4 million that will be utilized for capital-related expenses for our TransDev bus operation.
That covers both of them?
Oh, no, then I'll do the other one. So the second item, which is 27-22, is a supplemental appropriation for $2 million from funding that the county is receiving from the Environmental Facilities Corporation to be used for our septic replacement program. our program, these funds are 50% matched, not to exceed $10,000 for any applicant. Previously, we were in front of you regarding ARP money that's going to be used for the balance of that grant.
So it's 10 and 10 for a total of 20?
I believe it's 10 and 10 for total.
Okay. Is this limited, is this, the second bill here, 2722, are those funds limited to just the North Shore Septic System Program, or it's all throughout the county, including the barrier islands and the South Shore? Or there's no distinction?
I believe there's no distinction.
Okay. All right, very good, very good. Is there any debate or discussion amongst the legislators? Legislator Arnold Drucker?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question, Ken. The $4.3 million that's being appropriated to Nice Bus, to TransDev, does that put them in a good solid footing in terms of what you're aware of, in terms of their financial needs and capital needs?
I believe this is expected grant money that we receive every year from the state for capital and capital maintenance for their facilities. So this is part of our annual intake of federal and state funding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other legislators? Any public comment? All right, there being none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, these two items pass unanimously. There being no other business before this committee, may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Legislator Kennedy, second by Legislator Bino. Okay, all in favor? All right, this committee is now adjourned. Will be followed by Health.
I'd like to call the Health and Social Services Committee to order and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Thank you, Madam. Health and Social Service roll call. Legislator Joshua Lafazan.
Here.
Thank you. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Delia DeRigi-Witten. Legislator C. William Gaylor III. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Vice Chairwoman Mazi Melissa Philippe.
Here.
Chairwoman Rosemarie Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. There are 4 items on the agenda today. Clerk, item 15-22, 17-22, 18-22, and 19-22. And they are all ordinances supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Health Department. And we have with us
Sandy Simone,
first,
Health
I'm sorry, a motion please by Legislator Gaylor, seconded by Legislator DeRigi-Witten. And sure.
I kind of really miss Mary Ellen Lorraine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, item number 15-22.
Oh.
Ann D. Simone, Health Department. Item 15-22 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $251,400 for the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Grant. This grant is funded through New York State Department of Health. The program provides comprehensive services to reduce the prevalence of lead levels in children. It also provides case management services and environmental inspections to all children identified as having elevated blood levels. New York State law requires lead testing at age 1 and age 2. and the current New York State level of elevated blood lead level is 5 micrograms per deciliter.
Thank you. Any questions from the legislators? Okay, any public comment on that? Okay, we'll go to clerk item 17-22.
Okay, Andy Simone, item 17-22 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $490,000 for the Sexually Transmitted Disease Intervention Services Grant. This grant is funded through New York State Department of Health. Staff in this grant confirms the diagnosis and treatment of the infections with the healthcare provider. Patient is interviewed, counseled, education is provided, and partner notifications are served. Testing is also provided.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment? Okay, clerk item 18-22.
Again, Andy Simone, item 18-22 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $70,000 for the Child Fatality Review Team. This is 100% grant funded through the New York State Office of Children and Family Services. The Child Fatality Review Team reviews all deaths of children who reside and die in Nassau County and whose death is unexplained or unexpected. The review is done to better understand the causes of childhood deaths in the county and to make recommendations based on the findings to reduce future preventable child fatalities.
Any questions or comments? Any from the public? I would just have to say, I hope that's a number that is very, very low here in Nassau County.
It's more than you'd like to hear. I
I'm
can get
sure.
those exact numbers for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, clerk, item 19-22.
Item number 19-22 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $145,955 for the Drinking Water Enhancement Program. This is also a New York State Department of Health grant-funded program to protect and enhance the public water supply in Nassau County and to ensure the safety of all drinking water. This program assures that the 46 water districts in Nassau County adhere and comply with Part 5 of the New York State Sanitary Code and the Nassau County Public Health Ordinance.
Any questions? Any questions or comments from the legislators? Any public comment? I know that's an issue in my district, which is Hicksville and Bethpage. We have a lot of issues with our water, and I know the health department works wonderfully with our water district, so thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
So if there's no other questions for Ann, I just want to tell you thank you so much. I know it's not easy to fill Mary Ellen's shoes, but you did a great job today, and we're happy to have you here, and whatever we can help you with,
Thank
we're
you very much.
happy
I
to do
appreciate that. My heart rate can go down to under 120 now. Thank you.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate
So all those in favor of clerk items 15-22, 17-22, 18-22, 19-22 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstains? No. So those will move on to finance. There's no other business before the committee. Legislator Schaefer, you want to move to close the meeting, and seconded by Legislator Drucker. All in favor signify by saying aye. So we are, we'll move on to finance. Thank you all. Yep, finance is next. And Laura, I should be good, hopefully.
Okay, finance is next. Mike, would you do the honors, please?
Thank you, sir. Roll call. Legislator Joshua Lafazan.
Here.
Legislator Carrier Salage.
Here.
Ranking
Here.
Member Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemarie Walker. Legislator Thomas McKevitt. Vice Chairman John Ferretti. Chairman Howard Copel.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do is call the items which have gone through previous committees and require no further debate or discussion, and are consented to by both the majority and the minority. And those items are items 12 of 22, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 26, and 27. Motion on those items is made by Mr. Ferretti and seconded by Mr. Drucker. All those in favor of those items, please so indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Those items are unanimous. Thank you. Okay, number 8 is a resolution providing for the issuance of warrant, directing the county, the treasurer of Nassau to pay supervisors of various towns and villages sums apportioned for mortgage taxes for the quarter beginning October 1 through December 31. And that is moved by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. Lafazan. Anyone here? No, that's a routine item. Anyone have any questions on that item? No. Okay. All those in favor, please so indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? That item is unanimous. Number 20 is ordinance supplemental to with the Office of Management and Budget, and motion is made by Mr. McKevitt and seconded by Mr. Lafazan.
Good afternoon, Andy Persick, Office of Management and Budget. This is just to an annual 3-year update on the caseload reduction for ILS and legal aid. It's an approximately $300,000. It's a routine funding source that we get from the state of New York every year.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor of number 20, please so indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, Andy, do you have any others?
21 I have.
Okay, go for it. Number 21 is moved by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. Drucker.
Okay, item 21 is just reallocation of grant funding to maximize grant reimbursement in the health department.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 22 is another transfer of appropriations. I don't know who's that.
That's me too. I'm going to do 21, 22 and 25 are my last.
Well, then go for it, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Item 22 is, again, grant maximization, moving money between grant fund lines in the district attorney's office for a grant that we received from the federal government. So.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Unanimous. Number 25.
Item 25 is a transfer of appropriations in the operating budget and the Department of Probation to move money from its contractual service line into equipment line to purchase some equipment at the JDC.
Okay, any questions on that? I'm sorry. Motion on 25? 25, right. No, 26, that was a consent item. 22 and 25 is moved by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. Drucker. All those in favor of those two items, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Number 16, which we skipped, is another Office of Management and Budget. Andy, it's still you.
Oh, sorry.
And the motion is by Mr. Ferretti and seconded by Ms. Walker.
Yes, this is distribution 12 from Legal Aid Society in an amount of $537,731. It's distribution 12, year 1. It's an annual recurring monies that we get from the New York State ILS, and it gets funded to either Legal Aid or 18B as a funding source for them to follow up on all legal aid matters.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Number 10 is a resolution authorizing the county attorney to compromise and settle the claims of certain correction officers, benevolent association unit members pursuant to the county law. And that is moved by Ms. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lafazan. Now I'll take a motion for executive session made by Mr. Ferretti, seconded by Mr. McKevitt. All those in favor of going into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the members of the Rules Committee are invited to join us. Okay, we're back. Everyone here? Yes, good. Okay, we're back from executive session. Now we'll take a vote on the item number 8 of 22. All those in favor of this item, please so signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item is unanimous. Mr. McKevitt moves to adjourn, and Mr. Drucker seconds that motion. All those in favor of adjourning? Any opposed? We are adjourned, and now we're back to rules. Item is 8. 8. Let's put it down as 8. No, actually, I'm sorry. No, you were right. It was 10.
It's 10.
It was 10.
I'm going to call the legislature back into session. I don't think we need a. So we have full legislature. Calling the legislature back into session. We have one emergency item. We need to establish, I'll call the emergency, then we'll need a motion to establish the emergency. So the item is a proposed local law to amend the Nassau County Administrative Code to extend the deadline to file an application for the correction of an assessment for the tentative assessment roll filed on January 3rd, 2022. We need a motion to establish the emergency. Moved by Legislator Giuffre, seconded by Legislator Walker. All in favor of, any debate or discussion on the emergency? All in favor of establishing the emergency signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed?
Aye.
The emergency is established. Now I will call the item. 54, 2022 is a proposed local law to amend the Nassau County Administrative Code to extend the deadline to file an application for the correction of assessment for the tentative assessment roll filed on January 3rd, 2022. Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator McKevitt. This is an item which will give the residents, homeowners, an extension of time to file their assessment challenges until April 30th. The need is based on the fact that the notices of tentative assessment did not go out until late. By failing to send those out closer to the beginning of the year, they, in effect, will have shortened the challenge period for the almost all county residents. I mean, these notices are up on the website, but 99.9% of county residents, see these notices, and that's what triggers them to evaluate and potentially challenge their assessment. So, any debate or discussion? Legislator Rhodes.
If I may, is that open?
Yes.
Yes, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you, Rich. I just want to take the opportunity to mention that my colleagues and I, on behalf of the Democratic Caucus, we had written to the county executive, as well as copying the majority in regards to extending the date for being able to file grievances. We had heard from many of our constituents that had identified that they did not receive their grievance notices in the proper time. However, I do have a question if someone is available, if all the notices have been sent out, because I've still heard from several constituents that still not have received notices as of today. Is there anyone available from the department to be able to answer any of those questions? We plan to support this. This is something that we would like to see. Obviously, like I said before, we supported it. We wrote it into a letter. But I do have a question in regards to whether or not have all the notices, to the best of their knowledge, have gone out, have been to each of the homeowners.
You want to, Chris, do it?
Chris Lemoyne from the administration. How are you, everybody? I'm not sure of that answer, but I'll follow up and get back to you.
Okay, we just want to make sure that we're extending the date, the timeline, which is great. But we would just like to have an assurance that the notices have gone out, and that way we don't have to potentially extend the deadline again if the notices haven't gone out as of today. So if you could get back to us, that'd be great. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, we'll do. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Legislator Rhodes?
Thanks, Presiding Officer. Yeah, my understanding is, and please let me know if I'm speaking incorrectly, my understanding is that the notices were untimely because there was, the administration stepped into a role and notices that contained about 160,000 errors that they uncovered and then had to reproduce the letters. So I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that the lateness was in any way the responsibility of this administration. It's kind of what they having to fix what they inherited from the prior.
Okay. Any other debated discussion? Any public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
By Mazi, Philip, Legislator Philip, seconded by Legislator Walker. Any debated discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned, so we'll go back into the Rules Committee. Let's call the Rules Committee back into session. We have, to start things off, we have a consent calendar, which are items that went through committees a few moments ago, and it's been agreed by the minority that no further debate or discussion is needed for these consent items, and I'll call them now. Items 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 25, 26, and 27. Motion by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Any debate or discussion on these items? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? They carry unanimously. Okay. Next item is number 9 of 2022, which is a resolution appointing a Democratic Commissioner of Elections for the County of Nassau, moved by Minority Leader Abrahams, seconded by Legislator Bino. Any debate or discussion on this item? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Okay, we have some IMAs, which are items 28, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute intermunicipal agreements with the City of Long Beach, Village of Rockville Center, Village of Lynbrook, Village of East Williston, Village of Williston Park, and the Manhasset Union Free School District. Moved by Legislator Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Any debate or discussion on these items? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, they carry unanimously. Okay, the first addendum. I'll call all these together. If you need us to segregate them out, to call individually, vote individually, I will. So, item 5, 40, 41, 42. Actually, before I do that, I neglected to make a motion to suspend the rules. Motion to suspend the rules, Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. All in favor of suspending the rules, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, rules are suspended. Back and start all over again. I'm going to call these appointments, except for one at this time. Items 5, 40, 41, 42, 43, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. These are resolutions to confirm the county executive's appointment of the Honorable Thomas Adams to County Attorney, LaDonna Taylor to Executive Director of the Nassau County Youth Board, David Chang to the position of County Treasurer, Aruj Islam to the position of Executive Director of the Office of Asian American Affairs, Darcy Bellier to the position of Commissioner of the Department of Public Parks, Recreation, and Museums, the Honorable Paul Melly to the position of Executive Director of TIPVA, 46th appointment of the Honorable Stephen Bucaria as Commissioner and Chair of the Assessment Review Commission, the appointment of Jill Nevin to the position of Commissioner of Department of Human Services, Dennis Monet to the position of Commissioner of Office of Emergency Management, Honorable Angelo Delegati to the Nassau County Board of Elections, John Bach to the Nassau County Board of Elections, Samuel Namias to the Nassau County Bridge Authority, and Vincent Pasqua to the Bridge Authority. Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. These appointments were made by the county executive. We expect that all of the nominees will be here for the full legislative meeting on the 28th. What we are doing today is passing them through committees to get them ready for the full confirmation hearings. Any debate or discussion on these appointments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, they carry unanimously. Item 44, 2022, is a resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment of John Capice to the position of Commissioner of Consumer Affairs. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. That's before us. Any debate or discussion on this nomination?
Presiding Officer, just
Yes.
before we get into debate and discussion, if I may again,
Yes.
just in regards to the previous vote on all the appointees, as we normally customarily do, we generally tee these things up and allow them to be voted through with very minimal debate or discussion. But we do plan to have, we hope at the next legislative meeting, that there will be more conversation or more questioning back and forth for some of the vision that some of the department heads will have. So we do plan to ask more in-depth questions, but at this point we would just plan to just tee it up, and then I don't want anyone to interpret that teeing up is us voting in the affirmative in 2 weeks pending those answers. But thank you.
All right, thank you. We understand that position. Okay. Any discussion on the nomination of Mr. Capice? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, Okay, so that passes by a vote of 4 to 3. All right, now we're moving on to the second addendum. Item 53 of 2022 is a resolution to amend Resolution number 119 of 2021 as amended by Resolution number 1 of 2022, establishing the Special Legislative Task Force to combat anti-Semitism. This is a motion by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Okay.
Chris Lemoyne from the administration. We have Chief Deputy County Executive Arthur T. Walsh to present on this item.
Okay.
Good afternoon, members of the legislature. Thank you for having me today. I'm here on behalf of the county executive to propose an amendment to the anti-Semitism bill. The amendment includes expanding the membership into this group, not only adding an additional member of each of the legislative parties, also having the county executive as the person to designate the chairperson. Most importantly, from the 5 community members, we are proposing to have 18 community members. Since County Executive Blakeman has come to office, he's received numerous calls from the various Jewish groups indicating some interest in this legislation and participation in the task force. As you might all know, Nassau County has 16% of our population is Jewish. There's at least 6 different areas of the county that have populations with different sects of the Jewish faith. Many of them have called the county executive and asked that they participate in this program. So from going to 5 to 18 seemed logical. As far as the county county executive being the chair, this is not uncommon. I count at least 10 of the committees and boards of the county where the chairman is appointed directly from the county executive. Mr. Blakeman has been on the forefront of anti-Semitism move. When he was in the town council, he was part of the first municipality to pass anti-BDS legislation. In addition, in 2021, he was instrumental in an executive order which dealt with the ill-fated decision by Ben & Jerry's not to sell ice cream in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. He has publicly announced that in his new position he will be a pulpit to speak on anti-Semitism. And if there's any questions, I'll be free to please go ahead.
Questions by committee members? Go ahead, Legislator Reggie Witt.
We just have one concern in the new piece of legislation. It does not have a date as to when the committee should be formed, and I just don't want to see it linger for any reason. So if we could amend that possibly.
I do understand the legislation does have an end date for a report based on a holiday that is going to approach. So there is an end date. The county executive has spoken to many different people in the community, and we would act promptly on it to get this going. We think it's important legislation. It's important to move ahead with it. So I believe there was an end date for a report in the legislation other than as amended in here.
All right, so the concern is that there be a deadline for appointing, for having the appointees made.
Well, as long as the legislature picks their members, the county exec will pick his 6 members, and we'll move ahead. He was publicly announced this on the 27th at our signing of it that he's strong-willed to go ahead with this legislation. So I don't know where any delay would fall from here.
Right. I mean, let's say Stuckey has to make a statement, so you can do so. Okay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Just very, I was the drafter of the sponsor of this legislation, so it's very important to me, and we've really made some progress so far. But getting everyone together and coordinating meetings has been challenging, but we were able to do it so far. And the original legislation provides for the legislators to pick who the chair should be. and who the community members should be. And now you're curtailing, this bill is now curtailing the function of the legislature. And the original legislation called for, 6 additional community members aside from the 12 legislators. And now you're going to have 18. I think it's going to become unwieldy. And I'm afraid that getting everyone together to meet the timeline, it's a compressed timeline, and we keep losing time on this. It was supposed to have been done originally, the formation of the task force in January. We have dates in March for public hearings, and then everything has to be completed by May 27th, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And I'm just concerned that we're making this task force to be unwieldy and incapable of getting the mission accomplished, and that's all. And I think that the legislative function is to appoint the chair and to decide on the community members that should participate. So those are my concerns. Thank you, Presiding Officer, for allowing me to speak.
Well, all due respect, Mr. Drucker, the legislation that was passed had a 3-3 vote as far as both sides of the aisles to appoint the chair. We think that would have been deadlocked and there would have been no progress. This has the initiative of having the county executive appoint someone. There won't be a deadlock, and quite frankly, 5 people on the board would clearly disenfranchise several members of several of the communities. We have the Persians in the Great Neck Peninsula. We have the Orthodox in the 5 towns. We have the conservative reforms in the Northeast, and we also have other people in the South Shore. So quite frankly, our position is the way we have rewritten it is the right way for it to move forward. The way it was written was not going to move forward.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would just point out also that the county executive is the first Jewish American county executive. So I think in particular instance, I think it's appropriate for him to have that direct role. And as you said, there are so many different. I'm trying to search for the correct word, but there's so many different interested parties, and it's not everyone of the Jewish faith. So I think that's what's.
We've heard from members of the clergy that are interested in joining it also. Correct.
So, all right. Any other debate or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Last item is 55. Thank you, Arthur. 55 of 2022. It's a resolution to amend resolution number 387, 2008. As last amended by resolution number 241 of 2021 to designate new newspapers to publish and identify the real property listed by school district number located wholly or partly in the towns and cities on which real estate tax liens are subject to sale by the county treasurer for unpaid taxes. So this, I need a motion. Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. This basically adds an additional newspaper to the list of newspapers that are authorized to participate in this, and it is, I believe, the North Shore Leader, which represents a number of North Shore communities. Any debate or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn. Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator DeRigi Whitten. All in favor of adjourning? Passes unanimously.